Of October 18th. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast through Milford Television. There are media outlets that are present. If any person here would like to record or rebroadcast this meeting, please just let us know. The first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes for approval. They are the minutes for the September 20th regular session and the executive session and the October 4th 2012 regular session meetings. I'd like to take this in two motions since I was not allowed to participate in the executive session. A motion from Rob, a second from Paul to approve the regular minutes from September 20th and October 4th. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries. I'll have a second motion from Scott, a second from Mike to approve the executive session meetings from September 20th, which I will recuse myself from. Okay, so we can't vote. We don't have a quorum, so we cannot vote on that particular set of minutes, so we'll have to handle that next time. The next item on our agenda are announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Did any member have any announcements, correspondence, or distributions? Scott?
Patrick, a couple of announcements actually this evening. First off, for the interest of the viewing public, you notice that all the school committee members are wearing pink ribbons tonight, certainly in recognition of the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. One is special thanks to Jen Walsh and her students with the Milford High School vocational program who actually made them for the school committee tonight. So thank you all, and certainly a more than worthwhile cause. So thank you to Bob for helping put that together again. So thank you.
Any other member? I happen to have one announcement myself. The Friends of the Milford Area Special Athletes, the group that supports the Milford Special Olympians, are holding their annual dinner. That's going to be on Saturday, November 10th. I know that many committee members, myself included, think that when the Special Olympians come to visit us, it's one of the best nights that we have all year. And so it's nice to be able to go out and to support those Olympians during that dinner. This will be my 5th year. I enjoy it every time I go. It's a blast. I absolutely recommend it to anyone who wants to go. The secretary of the organization is a former committee member, Will Kincaid, and he advised me to let everyone know that if anyone wanted tickets for the event, they could contact him by email. That's willkincaid@verizon.net. One word. It's Will, W-I-L-L, Kincaid, K-I-N-G-K-A-D-E @verizon.net. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just another announcement. Correspondence, actually. This is from the Pathways program. That the committee might appreciate an update on this one. It's always nice to hear positive news whenever possible. This is from Sue Cohen, one of the Pathways coordinators. I thought you might like a brief update on where Pathways is this year. We currently have 17 students in the program. 7 of the students are in internships, as they've gained enough credit back to obtain junior status. Internship feedback has been very positive. We had up to 10 students working on credit recovery throughout the summer, and many continue to utilize this service during their enrichment time. The students were excited to receive progress reports last week, which were very positive. In January, the remaining 10 students will be eligible for internships, and we'll be taking on our next cohort of students, which are currently sophomores, which will be around 25 to 30 more students in Pathways. Just wanted to give an update to the committee as to the positive progress being made in that program. And I know the principal is here tonight, and Assistant Principal Carrie Bonnock, and thanks to both of you for steering that as well, as it has been. And this matter of distributions, Mr. Chairman, included in the packet this evening was the capital improvement plan. This is in response to the last meeting we had with Mr. Quinn here, and we talked about taking the documents, the history of projects, the current capital plan, which right now would be just the Woodland Elementary School, and then the plan for fiscal 13. And we've rolled that into essentially 3-chapter document, which is here. So it's for the committee's review, and perhaps we can plan to review it quarterly as a school committee, and hopefully this will be the kind of document that the committee was looking to have, and feedback is certainly appreciated.
Yeah, I think once we've had an opportunity to discuss this, maybe we can take it under discussion in a future meeting and see if it meets the expectations of all the committee members. Scott?
Just been a busy couple of weeks with the schools here, so I wanted to make sure we give some recognition to, there were 2 basketball games in the last couple of weeks that participated with both students as well as faculty. So most recently this past Monday, the many of the Milford High School principals, including our high school principals here with us this evening, participated in a charity basketball event against the Harlem Wizards, and I understand it was a raging success. Certainly a huge crowd, a great turnout. It was great to see everybody out there having some fun.
Which team won?
It was not, unfortunately, the Milford Educators.
They were outnumbered.
Yes.
50% for 3-point.
But it was great to see everybody having some fun out there. It was, and certainly even just from the beginning, the entertainment value, and the kids and all the residents had a great time. And then the previous Friday, there was also a student faculty basketball game the previous Friday, which had an opportunity to attend, and the kids had a great time. Again, teachers had a wonderful time as well. And then just last thing, from a community perspective, had an opportunity to go and speak with the Cub Scouts of Pack 67 this past Monday, who were working on their civics award, and they had some great questions. It was great to see the kids, and had lots of great questions and some pretty good suggestions. So we'll have to take some of them under advisement as we move forward. So it's great to see them, so I wanted to make sure I recognize them. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have one additional piece of correspondence. This is from Sue Robichaud, and it concerns our bistro program. It was directed specifically, I was to the superintendent. It was about Deb Friedman, Jen Walsh, Michelle Santangelo, and Roselle Villegas. And essentially, it's a rather lengthy correspondence, which I'll just take some highlights from. The bistro and pre-vocational and vocational programs at Milford High School are exceptional. These experienced professionals brainstorm ideas together as a team to meet student needs and the students' best interests. They're very caring, and they work tirelessly to get the job done right. Not everyone can work with special needs students, and they do it every day with patience, ease, and grace. And it's always wonderful to get news like that. It doesn't surprise me about any of the people that were listed in that correspondence, and so it's always nice to get. Any other members? The next item on our agenda is our invitation to speak. Did anybody come today to address the committee? Okay, seeing no one. The next item on our agenda is the Massachusetts Math and Science Initiative discussion. For those who have followed the committee meeting recently, you might know a little bit about this topic. I won't belabor it too much. I just want to take a moment to explain what the program is. Essentially, it's a program that is meant to increase participation among high school students in advanced placement programs, and it's also meant to help schools raise the scores of students who participate in the program and take what they call the AP exam. And the AP exam is a test administered to all high school students, and there's certain grade levels. If they achieve a certain result, they can then use those tests and those exams for college level credit. Unfortunately, this program was voted on by the Teachers Association to cancel that program over the course of this summer. This surprised many of the committee members. There were some positive aspects of that program that we were made aware of, and we didn't really receive from the Teachers Association any sort of an explanation of the educational reasons why it was canceled. And I think that's what concerns everyone here. We want to know, was the program working educationally? What benefit was it having for the students? And why was that program canceled? The only explanation that we got, unfortunately, was we have chosen to end this program because we have the right to do so in our collective bargaining agreement, which is perfectly acceptable and is within their rights to say so. And that vote we certainly don't question. We would, however, like to know more about why that program was canceled. We did invite the president of the Milford Teachers Association to come and speak with us tonight. We also invited any teachers that wanted to come in and tell us about the program, what was working well for the students, what were the educational values of that program. I don't see that anyone has come to speak with us tonight, but I did want to ask Bob to highlight some parts of the program. I think that we spoke a little bit about its successes the last time that we met. We didn't have an opportunity to make a more thorough presentation on it, and so Bob was kind enough to take some time to address some of those issues in these slides tonight. So, Bob?
Sure. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. not everyone at the table, I think, we use the term MIMSY. I'm not sure necessarily everyone knows what that means, or or maybe you had forgotten what some of the highlights of the program were. So I don't have a lot of slides on this. I just have a few of the bullet points that I wanted to share, and many thanks to Carrie Bonnock, who provided the information to me. Carrie's been largely responsible for the implementation of this at Milford High School since the agreement. And again, much to your point, the invitation, there had been some dialogue over the summer. It wasn't clear to me, it certainly wasn't clear to the committee as to entirely what all the problems were with the program. We wanted to work through those. It seems as though we're not going to have an opportunity to work out those kinks, and I did identify what some of those were based on the information that I did have, either anecdotally or in a side conversation after the vote, in fact. But I wanted to share some of the highlights. So this is the Saturday study sessions were from the conversations I had with staff on this is one of the hallmarks. These two bullets are actually the two main hallmarks of the MIMSY grant. One of which is the Saturday sessions where students come to school on a Saturday. And Carrie, I'd invite you at any point if you need to clarify things if I'm off here, having that you've lived this. But the Saturday sessions are opportunities where teachers are working with children and preparing them for the AP exams. Professional development is the kind of rigor we need to have our teachers making sure that their curriculum is aligned to the AP exam. They're following form appropriately and being trained to do that. So these programs are available. You can buy them without being part of this program at a cost. So where it says value here, this is the value this is the dollar value given to us or forwarded to us through this grant. So what this will result for us is effectively a net loss. We're going to have to find in order to, if we were to continue the Saturday sessions, which we can do, and there is interest among staff here to do that, because the staff who have been invested in the program don't want to let that piece go. They've seen that there's some value with that.
Our teaching staff. Our
teaching staff, yes. But the cost to do, we have to compensate them for their time, and then there's the matter of organizing them and organizing the school to have these take place. We lose other benefits as well, just a matter of the cohort piece, where staff here would have an opportunity to collaborate with other districts regionally. We know that's a value to us. We've seen that in other areas of professional development. That's not valued on here per se, but certainly there's a value added to that piece. The professional development, this is typically more of your training, your seminar workshops that prepare teachers to be well prepared to teach AP classes that are rigorous. And then you see the value there, and that's what's given through this grant, largely funded by private donors and foundations to make that possible. So those are the two major points there. Yes.
3 Saturday study sessions for each discipline, English, math, and science, and for the other courses, for example, for biology and English classes and the physics and the...
Yeah, come on up, Carrie, because...
Those students too were afforded the opportunity to stay after school and make up anything they might have missed in Saturday study session. But the commitment from mathematics to attend first off was very strong, and then to stay after school if they missed something was equally strong. But other students in other areas did stay after if they missed as well. I just want to add.
No, I'm glad you said that. And again, for the public that's interested to watch, the school committee certainly. This does not mean that we're not going to now provide professional development to our staff and have them adequately trained to do. We're going to have to make that work. It's going to come from somewhere. It's going to come from our local budget. Something's going to have to give in order to make that happen. So that we're going to have to cost out. And as you'll see in a couple more of the bullet points, there are parts of the grant, because you're dependent upon dollars from private donors. If those dollars are reduced in some way, we might have a higher obligation anyway, even if the grant were still in place. And one example of that is, as you'll see later in the slide, is the contribution for the taking the exam itself, the AP exam. The slide that we'll show in a moment will show that MIMSY contributed 50% of that cost. That's been now quartered from. So there would be a real cost we'd have to absorb anyway, had the grant actually stayed in place. So I want to be as objective and really, show both sides of the positioning on this, because there are some valid concerns that were brought up. But again, in my experience with it, was after the vote had been taken, so there's not an opportunity to remedy some of these points. Here's some bullet points. AP Mathematics more than doubled the number of qualifying scores from 41 to 83. Milford High School went from a strong calculus AB course, 39th in the state, qualifying scores, to among the very best at 17th. Female student qualifying scores in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM, went from 32 to 63. I'm reading these bullet points to the benefit of the public. I know that everyone here can see that. I think it's probably being broadcast at home as well.
I think it's important, Bob, to highlight some of these pieces. So
Okay.
I don't think you're wasting our time.
Okay. I don't not a big fan of reading PowerPoint slides, but I think there's not that many of them. 50% increase in low-income students taking AP Math, Science, and English. More than double the number of minority students took the advanced placement exam. Scores of 4 and 5 in Math, Science, and English, which are college level, equivalent to college levels A's and B's, went from 74 to 94, which included a 62% increase in scores of 5.
Which is the highest score.
Which is the highest score.
On the exam.
That's correct. So 1 to 5 would be the range. And what that could translate to, for example, a student testing out, having that kind of rigor, getting into and testing out of as a couple of WPI students came back and attested, saved them actually the real value to that, besides the value of offering this in Milford schools, it was a $10,000 savings in their college tuition bill because of that being available to them prior to their matriculation at WPI. That's significant.
And there's a great number of students that get dismissed from required courses when they enter into their disciplines in college, so they can start more advanced work much sooner. So it gives them a jump on their college education as well.
Right. And I want to underscore too that this doesn't mean that this couldn't happen. I don't want to make it sound as though this is only happening because of MIMSI. And MIMSI is a support system for that. Milford High School has had rigorous AP courses. There was room for improvement in that, room for expanding the offerings. And the point you made about their mission was really to create opportunities so it wasn't such an elitist program. It wasn't just for the select population of kids that are being asked to take the AP courses after AP course after AP course, which can be draining on those students, but was to expand it so students could take the course who might not otherwise think of themselves as being AP caliber students. It turns out they've produced that. So it presented an opportunity. Milford High School was on track and was progressing toward increasing the rigor of its AP program. This gave us the support monetarily and providing the cohorts to come in and give us that robust and really well-founded peer observation structure, or peer work structure that we hadn't had prior.
If I could just add about tuition savings for our students, if a student took 4 AP courses over the course of their high school career, which is very manageable because you have grades 10 through 12, 4 AP courses, it's not extraordinary. Many students take 4 AP courses, and at different schools, different amounts of credit are issued. So in other words, if a student took AP Calculus, they would get 4 credit, in a qualifying score, they'd receive 4 credits from UMass. English, Language, and English Lit, 1 junior year, 1 senior year, 3 each. So now that student's at 10 credits right now, and if they take the Physics B course, that's 8 credits. So that student has 18 college credits before leaving high school. So if the student was to go to UMass at a cost of about $380 a credit, that's about $7,000. But if the student goes to a private school where it's about $1,100 per credit, that's $20,000. So the importance and the value of the savings for the students and their families with 4 courses over 3 years is very significant. And to Bob's point, that holds true for art history, government, U.S. history, for all the AP courses. So the student participation in the program, whatever their passions are, really will bode out quite well for them financially if they make the commitment.
I'll get just a few more bullet points to share here. Most AP courses that were offered at Milford High School prior to MIMSI remain in place today, with the exception of AP art history. The class was eliminated to allow for greater participation in math, science, English AP classes. AP classes that were added as a result of this initiative are still available for student matriculation. As was the case before the program began, many teachers continue to offer extra help sessions both after school and on Saturdays in advance of AP exams. That's a bullet point that I added, by the way. Mr. Chairman, the committee may not have had a chance to see their email this evening at 6:14 or 6:24, sometime after 6 o'clock this evening. What was it? 6:30. We did receive correspondence from the Teachers Association as their I think it was rebuttal, or it was a feedback to the invitation to engage in the dialogue. It was just a bulleted, and you'll have the chance later to see it. I barely had time to cut and paste that into the slides, so I could try to offer that other perspective. So I feel like I'm having a discussion for 2 parties at the same time myself, so a little bipolar on this one.
Unfortunately, we're not having a discussion right now.
Yep.
Which is really what we kind of wanted to do.
So I'm doing my best, and that bullet is right from the letter, as you'll see, just to show that perspective. I think it's important to be as objective and as balanced as I can. And again, another point, not in their letter, but a point that was made at a prior discussion after the vote was the MIMSI has not yet paid the threshold or administrator awards. Maybe Carrie, could you speak to what that means in terms of the threshold administrator awards? There was as I understand this, there would be some incentive, right, for.
Well, the threshold awards for the teachers are because they are required, or were required, to attend the College Board Summer Institute, which is 5 days of their summer time to participate in that program. So there were 5 days in the summer. There were 2 days each for the fall workshops in each discipline, so that brought them up to 7. There were 3 additional professional development days after school that the teacher, 4 that the teachers attended during the school year. So they were required to participate in these different professional development activities outside of school time. And so that threshold award would compensate the teacher for participation in that program. And then on top of that, there were, if a teacher achieved a certain number of qualifying scores based on the number of enrollments in the class, that teacher would then be awarded a certain amount of money. And if memory serves, the union had discussed that and talked about perhaps pooling that money and then deciding what would happen with that money from there. Right. So, so if you look at the budget, the awards really spoke to the achievement of the students earning 3s, 4s, or 5s in the courses, and then the training, faculty were reimbursed for their time through a stipend of about $500 for the Summer Institute and that sort of thing.
Was that stipend actually paid the $500?
To my knowledge, there has been no payment to anyone so far.
That was one of the valid points that was brought up, no question, on the other side of that again.
They're worrying about their awards. And we need a whole.
Yeah, again,
to Patrick's point, we need a discussion. We just want to talk about it.
But I wanted to just make sure the point was made publicly that that's a concern that was raised. 50% of the advanced placement exam fee, as I mentioned earlier, was paid by MIMSI. The dollar value here is $43.50 per exam times 259 reimbursements for a total, if the math is correct here, of $11,266.50. Add that to the professional development impact on the first slide, and on top of that was the materials benefits and the workshop training. So it's a significant amount of money that we'll have to find. Again, this number would be reduced anyway, if had we been part of this grant, because the amount of money available from the donors was lessened.
Clearly, it sounds like, just based on some of the information on the first slide, there was some very significant, the second slide, I apologize, there was some very significant educational benefit to this. You know, the monetary, and that, if my math is correct here, just north of $40,000 worth of reimbursements that, you know, we'll certainly, you know, do all of our best interest to try and come up with. But that's, you know, when you think about a tough economy and tough economic times, certainly it's no small dollar amount to try and come up with. But educationally, certainly it seems like there were some pretty significant benefits that were accompanied with this. It's, you know, to Patrick's point, Christine's point, it's disappointing we can't have a conversation to understand how we can make some addition.
To your point, $40,000 is almost a teacher's salary.
I would guess what is a first-year teaching salary? Okay, so yeah, it's 2 paraprofessionals. We were able to, through your creativity, Bob, bring back a French program. I'm guessing that probably more than covers that individual salary. That's disappointing.
Just a piece of clarification, I'm sorry. You made reference to the association took the vote. I thought it was the faculty at the high school took the vote.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah,
I didn't hear it wrong the last time we met.
I misspoke. You are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a vote.
The association, it was the faculty at the high school.
At the high school only.
The vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
The bullet on the transportation, there was money budgeted for transportation costs, and we ended up using our own transportation. We had purchased buses a couple of years back, and that continues to, what's the term you use, pay in dividends. Yes, continues to pay in dividends, as is the case here. and as I mentioned about the AP exam subsidies. Another concern that was raised, again, Mike, I speak, it's the association because that's the other bargaining side, but the concern among the high school teachers that were present in the meetings that I had invited them to attend was about students being pushed into AP courses. We had some discussion, or I shared that with you, about enrollment demands, and not because it was the educationally sound thing to do. Again, this is the position of some teachers on this matter, feeling like students, the recruitment was the word I used. The recruitment tactic was a little bit too aggressive, and that's what we addressed with Mort Orloff at the time as well, and fully prepared to take a look at that and make sure that that wasn't the case. And again, he sat right next to me at this table here in the room and had heard it firsthand himself.
And I think that there was every indication from the MIMSI program that they were willing to make adjustments to fix the things that weren't working well for our district. I think it's important to highlight that.
That's correct. And then here's about the piece about the qualifying scores. Milford had 100 more qualifying scores from 2011 to 2012, which is a significant increase. So just for the benefit of everyone who's watching, a qualifying score is when a student achieves a score of 3 or higher. A qualifying score is recognized as passing by the colleges, and students often receive credit for, as Carrie mentioned, for receiving qualifying scores on AP exams. And here's a chart. I know it's going to be difficult to see. I wanted to put it all on one slide. If you can see the last 3 columns would be the area I would have you look at. It's the number of qualifying students over the last 3 years, MIMSI being in place up until or from 11 to 12, which would be that last column. And you can see the number from the bottom, from the total, from 80 to 131 to 158. There's qualifying score growth. I know it's difficult to see that. Hopefully it's better at home. I don't know if it's easily able to be seen at home.
In calculus, we went from 23 qualifying scores to 42 qualifying scores. In calculus for the subtotal, from 41 qualifying scores to 60 qualifying scores. The math subtotal went from 41 qualifying scores to 83 qualifying scores. And the science subtotal went from 28 qualifying scores to 32 qualifying scores. So it seems like the biggest dividends were being paid in calculus and math.
Part of this program brought in some unique courses, the environmental science and statistics, and when you look at that figure up there, all 22 students that took statistics got a qualifying score. What's that number for? I can't. Environmental science, there were 12 students, all 12 got a qualifying score. These are programs and AP courses, you open the breadth of your response, you get more students involved. That's what MIMSI, what I've read, offers and gives you the structure for. It's pretty cool that all of your students got qualifying scores in those 2, and then we increase those scores in some of the more difficult calculus. If you're going to put the amount of work that these courses require, don't you want to come out of it thinking you're going to get that qualifying score?
Absolutely.
It's very clearly, when you look at the years past, the scores were pretty consistent, 80 passing scores, 81 passing scores, 80 passing scores, and then over the last 2 years, we saw a 197% increase from 2010 to 2012 in the increase in total scores. I certainly don't want to minimize that big of an increase. Certainly the teachers put a tremendous amount of effort in it. It's, kudos to the talents of the teachers at Milford High School, but very clearly this program was helping. And because when you look at any time there's that big of an increase, you look at what changed. Well, what changed was we had this program in place and the students were benefiting from it educationally, and clearly the teachers were benefiting from it. It would be certainly wonderful if we were able to have a discussion to be able to, if there were some issues with it, at least understand what those changes were and what those challenges were, and it's disappointing.
Just what Scott was saying, the program has so much to offer. Especially in today's day and age where children are now challenged. And when someone works hard on something and then they achieve it, you more or less push them on top of their game, and that's what you need today. When I was younger, in high school, we were more or less competing amongst other regions in our state. As you get older and you see how the times change, you see how now we're competing against state to state. In today's day and age, we're competing against other countries. And when you look at these other countries, I just read something before this meeting, just to try to get a little more prepared for this. And it says, how we're more or less lacking throughout the country in math. I think we're number 25 out of the developed countries. You know, we're ranked number 25 and number 17 in science. You know, when you look at these other developing countries like, you know, China and India, you know, just their elite students, the population of their elite students equals our entire student population. Plus, they can speak our language. You know, so, I mean, we're really behind the 8 ball, and in a program such as this would really get us going, it'll get us more prepared for what's out there, and that's what our job is as a school committee. That's what teachers' jobs are as teachers and administrators, as administrators. Prepare these children for our next generation that's coming up. Prepare them for the world. Prepare them for the competition that they're about to face. And right now, it looks pretty bleak unless something changes. And the way you know, Bob presented these results, it shows that it was working. It was some sort of a support system that was working to support a program that was already in place. And it was successful. It's just too bad that it wasn't continued, because it showed some great progress, and sort of unfair not only for the students but for the taxpayers of Milford as well.
You've been very consistent, Paul, about how can we make our students more competitive in the global market. I mean, you've said that time and time again, and here we found something.
We found something.
We found something that was working, and now we don't have any longer.
Right. Too bad.
But I want to stress, though, and I agree with the points made, we're not going to now not deliver on it for our students. We're going to make it work, because that's what we do. And we'll continue to expand course offerings. We'll continue to keep the rigor and create opportunities for students to be part of these programs who might otherwise be part of what had been viewed for a long time as an elitist kind of educational system. We're committed to that. It's going to cost us a little bit more to get there.
Is there any other program like MIMSI that we could be looking at as a replacement?
Not that I'm aware of. Milford was attractive to, because you have all these donors. You have Gates Foundation, and it's really all the money's kind of harnessed in this national initiative that has a state outlet for it. So really, this is the big player. I mean, there may be other grant opportunities we can look at to try to offset that. We haven't explored that. At least I haven't explored that at this point. But as far as something that's comparable to this, I'm not aware of that. Not in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
They have gotten into relationships with WPI, with Partners Healthcare, Mass Mutual, John Hancock, so they have a lot of private organizations working with them now too, so to continue.
This guy, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to add, Paul, to your comment about the student achievement. Last year, because of this initiative, we administered the PSAT to all the 10th and 11th grade students. Now that cost was incurred by the district as part of this initiative, and that continued on. We did that yesterday as well. And there are many benefits to that, all the aggregate data that we receive, so we can look at students in cohorts and whatnot. But it's the individual student reports that are so valuable, because we can use that information to tell our students how they compare to their counterparts in the nation. So if we have a student scoring in the 80th percentile nationally in critical reading, and we look at that junior who's never been in the AP program, but they're in the top 20% in the nation, and they're not considering the AP program, that's a conversation we need to have with that student. And that holds true for the math, but the writing. We received the AP Potential Report that goes right into the history program, government, the world history, the foreign languages. So it really, it has such far-reaching opportunities, that data report. And I particularly, I was talking to a student last year, and I said to him, you know, your scores are extraordinary, and you're not in the AP program. I said, if you considered that, if you thought about maybe taking an English course or a math course, and he looked at me and he smiled and he said, oh, you're on to me. And I said, I am. And he said, I said, I have your PSAT scores, and it tells me where you stand nationally, and you did so well in this area. And so we had a really great conversation, and we left it at, think about this, because you certainly are a student that should be in the AP program. And when you apply to college, they will expect that you've been in the AP program, because Milford High School has such a robust program. They will ask you, gee, with these SAT scores, because of course the PSAT will translate to the SAT, why weren't you in the AP program at Milford High School? Because you have a great program at your high school. So those are tough questions for kids to answer when they haven't participated in the program and they have the ability to do so.
Okay, I have nothing further on the slides tonight. That's
absolutely, yeah.
who looks at all those scores and coordinates the PSATs? Okay, who's the point person? Is it you? I hope not, that there's more than you that's doing it. And then who of the guidance counselors, do you take that information, go through all these, I mean, it must be like 600 scores, and then go through that and say to guidance counselor A, B, and C, or are you doing all that legwork?
Well, a couple of things. So we receive the student individual score reports, and so guidance counselors receive a copy of each student's score report, and that data can be used in the conversations that the guidance counselors are having with students when they go through the course selection process. With that said, because of our MIMSI program last year, many of us were talking to students about that data. But the data is released to, administration has it, and the guidance counselors have individual score reports for the students.
And I do want to say that one of the big improvements, like math was the example where we went from, what was it, in the 30s in the state to 17 as far as scores. You know, part of getting into college, though, and having a rigorous program is the reputation for rigor. And so being able to say we moved from 35 to 17 one year is great. Let's see if we can keep that 17 up year over year over year. Whether MIMSI is that solution, I don't know, but that's where you have some kind of different that now we're there. And I don't know what the difference is, but I think we need to really carefully look at it.
Well, and I don't mean to jump in, Christine, but I think that point is especially strong because we're often talking about, you know, how can we demonstrate to our citizens, to the district, and to colleges that we have competitive students here.
Yes.
And if we can say we're 17th in the state on the AP exam and the math courses, that's a very, very strong argument.
It's impressive. It's impressive, and it's. I have always been about promoting and getting our kids into the best schools possible and doing that end of it, and we always seem to be like chasing, like that's a lead. 17 is pretty darn good, and so I just hope we continue to get there. As far as money, I know it keeps saying money, 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 and you know, contractually I get it, the teachers had that right. I wish we had come to the table to have this discussion. But this committee has always worked for the benefit of the students, and we've always found the resources to get a program like this moving and going. And we'll continue to do that. And I mean, the results are impressive, but we can go forward from here. And I think as a committee, we want AP to be a focus, and we want rigor to be a focus, because the community deserves it for their investment in our schools, and the students who show this benefit deserve it. And I wanted to ask one more thing about the students, because we haven't had their perspective. And I'm sure you had students that participated in a MIMSI-driven program, but also when they were in 10th grade, or juniors also participated in AP courses. And I'm wondering if they had a reflection on a difference in how they were taught AP, or how the support, like the Saturday sessions and the after-school sessions, were those just introduced because MIMSI came in, or were those part of what we offered as an AP construct?
Many students will stay after school with teachers, advanced placement teachers, and all of our teachers in different courses for extra help, and that's always been encouraged, and many students partake of that. But the Saturday study sessions are a direct result of the relationship that we're in with MIMSI.
And did you get, they weren't required, but what was the participation?
The participation rates, and it goes to one of the slides that Bob had, it varied. There was very strong participation rates in some subjects. For example, math had very strong participation, and chemistry had very strong participation. And there was very good participation in English and in some of the sciences as well. But what we ran up against sometimes with students were conflicts with things like perhaps a work schedule, or they had to tend to something at home or in their personal life. One of the things that the kids found to be an obstacle was the fact that they had to come and get on the bus and be there all day long. They asked a lot, well, can I drive myself? Can I just go for half of it? Could I go for a couple of hours? Some students were willing to go from maybe the 8 to 12, but then they wanted to get out to go to work. We required that the students take the bus, because when we got into this relationship with MIMSI, that was part of the agreement. This would be treated like a field trip. So there would be buses and releases, and parents would be informed and that sort of thing. So the participation on some of the Saturdays was excellent. With participation here, when we hosted, it was great. Of course, because the kids come to their home school. But they did have to go to Marlborough, to BVT, and to Nipmuc for the other study sessions. So it did vary. What I would say about the Saturday study sessions is that it was a total of 18 hours per discipline, and it equates to what a student might pay for Kaplan Review or Princeton Review or Summit or one of these for-profit organizations that charge students thousands of dollars for test prep, for AP, for PSAT and ACTs and SATs. And this was at no cost to our students. And the lessons were taught by classroom teachers instead of folks who are hired maybe as a part-time job. I thought that was a really big deal for our students because they didn't have to go out to a private test prep company to get ready for those tests, these exams.
I mean, I think when you have such high stakes that these students have, that opportunity, I don't know, I think we can replace a lot. You know, I think we're creative here, and I think that the administration is on board with continuing the rigor, but I don't know how you replace some of those things, and that's the difficulty. But the value you can't measure because you're getting right at the student. And
I agree, and I think too that the legwork with it. I'm sure that the folks who work at MIMSI did do an extraordinary amount of work to pull that together. That's, you know, for all those Saturdays, 3 per discipline. I mean, that's a lot, and there's a couple hundred kids. And there's lunch and there's prizes and, you know, there's a lot of fun that goes on for the students, plus hiring all the teachers who come in to present these lessons. So, you know, with the science, there's 4 subjects. So there's a whole lot of folks. There are folks coming from Vermont to teach some of these lessons. So it was classroom teachers, and then they would pull some of their resources from other regions, because MIMSI, as I think everyone here knows, they're an offshoot of NIMSI. It's a national math and science initiative. So we're the Massachusetts, but they're all over the country. So.
I'd just like to make a point that, you know, everybody in this room lives a very busy lifestyle, and we all have a lot to do every single day. The slideshow or the PowerPoint that Superintendent Tremblay put on, and it shows that the program has definitely made great advancements. And I understand that there are people that they must have some issues with it. And we give them an opportunity to come here and sit and talk to us tonight, and not one person shows up. I just want the message out there that as a school committee member, I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed that not one person showed up tonight to just sit at that table and discuss it.
I will add that Mrs. Letourneau sent me an email late this afternoon. She was planning on being here today, but she did have an unexpected emergency that she had to attend to. Okay.
Certainly something, yeah. It's something that, you know, I think we've all said it more than once, just very disappointed. I think it's something that, you know, I think it's disappointing that we can't have the conversation. This isn't Milford. This isn't the way we do things. We've always done well together as a community. The teachers and the school committee and the administration always working really well together. And, you know, I said it at the last meeting, I'm gonna say it again. This seems like it's a departure, and there's a disconnect here, and I don't understand why. And I think when I left the last meeting and we heard about it, and when I came into tonight, and I'm sure my head is turning bright red right now because I can feel it getting hot. One of the things that I'm the most frustrated about is just that. I just don't understand why there's such a big disconnect. What happened? That's all we want to find out. I understand it's within your right, and certainly would never want to infringe on that. This just isn't the way we do things in Milford. I don't know how other cities and towns do it. Quite frankly, I'm not interested. That's why I don't live there. That's why I live in Milford, because we always work together, and we always work together for the kids. That's the part that's got me the most frustrated.
Enrollment's up too. So of course, chemistry, you know, chemistry enrollment's up 175% this year. So you know, kids are excited about enrolling in these courses. Statistics 21%, English language 37%, and also just to let you know, our virtual high school program as well is also up significantly. That's up 200% with kids in AP. So in those AP courses too, we're looking at Physics B, Physics C, Economics, so students are really stretching themselves through virtual learning as well.
I just think those are the numbers that probably need to hear. I think that's very, very exciting for this school to have such increases in these type of courses and offerings, and not just the calculus, not just the English, but the breadth. It's wonderful. It's terrific. That being said, I hope that we have another presentation soon of how the administration, the high school, is making sure that things that work keep working, and the way that we can evolve and get these things in place, because it is what it is. Let's make sure that the kids that have enrolled, probably because they heard the successes of their peers, or they were part of the successes of last year. And so I just want to make sure that we're continually informed. So I don't know if it needs to be another agenda item making that specific request, but not in June. You know, it's end of October now. Wouldn't it be great if I could see something in December? I don't know what our agenda's like, but or beginning of January. You know, this is the stuff I love, and I like data-driven success, and this is what we're seeing. So if we can continue and how we can support it, we support it by constantly hearing about it, hearing what you need, hearing what's working, what isn't working, and how, as a committee, we can continue. So that's my only request. I just think these numbers are great.
I'll add one more number, and this is inclusive of all of our AP students from 2011 to 2012. The number of our students who were recognized as AP scholars went up by 60%. So that's, yeah. Yeah. So that's tremendous.
And the disconnect is just that, because when you hear these statistics and enrollment is up and the qualifying scores are up, and one of the very few things that we're hearing is recruitment, I'm not understanding that. I don't, if you're looking at PSAT scores to determine or to suggest to a student, you know, you might want to take a look at this. I don't know how, you know, recruitment, ill recruitment factors might be playing into that. So again, just
sometimes with the PSAT too, the students with there's a raw number there, and what does that mean? So it's that conversation about, that's why, so we look at the statistics, the national statistics, and compare the student, and that's what really gets kids thinking, really? I was in the top 30, you know, in math? Yes, you were, so let's talk about that. And
I think if we're recruiting a broader range of students, it behooves us to make sure we have the supports in place so those students are successful. Because if those students haven't been identified till they're juniors, there may be a whole issue of like, well, I can't do that. So then you put them in a rigor of an AP class, and they're like, holy smokes, I really can't do this. But wait a minute, if we have the correct support and supervision from the teacher and their guidance, I'm putting a lot on guidance, they'll be successful, but I think it's part of the process. You know, a student who's never been identified that they can do this is now doing it. Well, yeah, it's going to seem like recruitment's a little scary, but
I think that's probably the most important point of all of this, is that this is going to have a cumulative effect, that these successes are going to build upon successes, and it's going to pick up speed as it moves forward, because we'll have senior students telling juniors, you know, it's okay, you can take AP chemistry and you'll pass it and you'll do well. And so now we created a community and an environment where we're breeding success. And so, you know, I don't want to lose that momentum. And it's unfortunate, you know, we wanted to have a discussion tonight, and unfortunately we couldn't do that. I mean, we have no other options here but to close the book on this chapter, and we have to move on and find ways to provide these services in the best way that we can to the students to make sure that we don't lose the head of steam that we built up on this. And it's a shame that we don't know more, but we're going to have to accept what we know and move forward and make improvements where we can. And thank you, Carrie, for all the work that you do. And Mike, absolutely, we really appreciate it. Okay. The next item on our agenda, actually, I'd like to frame this just a little bit. Tonight we have two items on our agenda that are going to, they're building towards a sort of a process. We're going to hear, first we're going to hear from the Shining Star. We're going to have an update on how the opening of school went and how some of the initiatives are working in that building. We're going to have a school present at each meeting, and as we build and work through the schools, we're also going to be building through the MCAS data, and so we're going to ultimately culminate with the high school presentation and then another, debrief on the MCAS data to what we've learned from today through that point. So I'm really excited about the way this is going to work. And so thank you very much for coming to join us tonight. We really appreciate it. And I'll turn the floor over to you.
We'll start out with, basically when we came back to school, we had an extremely clean facility, which typically it's clean, but because we have the summer program in our schools, we kind of have to wait till a week before school starts. So we were there, we got our teachers in there early to set up their classrooms. So Hank Cavino and the whole custodial staff did a phenomenal job. So it looked beautiful. We have a new floor. Everything was great when we came in. We had our orientation and our open house at the beginning of school. The orientation, we had Officer John Tiernan, come in and talk about safety and security to our new parents. Judy Dagnes, our Director of Nursing and our new Shining Star nurse, talked to our parents about safety and health-related issues. Bob was there to give some welcoming remarks to all the new families who just entered Milford Public Schools. And Rob Lanzetta, thank you for coming. He represented the school committee, so thank you for that. We have a lot of new hires this year at Shining Star. They're not new hires, they're actually replacements for some of our staff. We have 7 new behavioral assistants and 2 half-time nursing assistants. We had a huge pile of resumes from graduating students from college who applied for behavioral assistance. So we have a great new group of kids to me, and they're working in our Milestones program, and every single one of them is doing a phenomenal job. We also had, at the last minute, we had to open up a new Milestones classroom because of the huge number of new referrals we got for children on the autism spectrum. So we currently have 2 classrooms, 2 physical spaces. We are looking to use one last classroom that we have that's free. We're going to put new cubbies in that room because right now we have 29 students on the spectrum at Shining Star Preschool. We have about 8 new students coming in the next couple of months with that diagnosis. We're in the process of doing evaluations. So I would say, that's almost 20% of our total student population, maybe 18%. We filled most of our waiting list, which was about 15 students. So through people that have moved, we filled most of those. We have 160 students currently enrolled at Shining Star. 97 of them are students without special needs. And pretty much that's it. We are starting our diagnostic group in the first week of November. Those are for children that are at risk or that maybe don't qualify for special needs, but we just want to have an extended look at. And we are currently getting ready for our NAEYC visit. The window is between October 10th and the 30th. We haven't gotten the call yet. We'll get a call one business day before the visit. We're all betting on next week, Monday and Tuesday. So, and we're ready. Rob Quinn has taken care of us in all of our facilities, so we have no issues there. He's been great to us, and our portfolios are ready. We're ready. So hopefully we will get reaccredited. I'm confident that we will. And Bob, I briefly want to talk about the Pathways program. We are a work site for the Pathways program. 3 of the 7 students that do internships are working at Shining Star Preschool, and they are doing a phenomenal job in the classrooms.
Is that new this year?
Yes. Well, yes, and because last year we were not a work site. This year we are. So 3 young ladies come down, and they're there consistently every single day in 3 separate classrooms. We've had very positive feedback from the classroom teachers. Susan Cohn and I have met with the 3 interns just to give the kids the feedback. They seem to love it. We love having them. The students love them. So we hope to continue this partnership with them as far as being a work site for the rest of the year and into next year. And finally, we have our playground ceremony tomorrow, so we'll be thanking all of our donors that helped us with the renovation. And we are also going to do a dedication to our longtime friend and colleague, Donna Kling. The Kling family will be there. As you all know, Donna Kling worked at Shining Star Preschool for 20 years. We thank Bob Tremblay for honoring her on the first day of school in a moment of silence. So we will do a little ceremony for her family tomorrow. We hope to see you all. Unfortunately, it's going to rain, so we're going to do it in the gym. That's okay. It'll still be nice. And that's it, unless you have any questions.
Didn't we open your programs to students this year, and did you have a waiting list for any programs, or the waiting list, you said were specific programs?
For specific programs, for instance, a lot of parents wanted to sign up for the 5 full days.
Okay.
We could not accommodate them because we could only take 10 students. And then we had, a lot of people wanted the 5 mornings, but not the 5 afternoons. So we have actually 3 openings for the 5 afternoon program. So the people on the waiting list are waiting to get into the 5 mornings or the 5 full days, and it won't happen this year.
Right. Okay.
How is the drop-off and the parking been going over there? Because I know Officer Tiernan really emphasized
It's been great. There
no
have been no
problems.
complaints that I know of. I haven't heard any complaints from any of the parents. We park right across the street. It's kind of dangerous backing out because you can't really see, so we want the teachers to park there because they're there all day, and then most of us park far away so that all of our families and the kids can be closer to the school so they're not, in the parking lot. But no complaints at all that I'm aware of. I don't know if you're all aware of any, but. And Officer Tannen has been there. He did ticket one person.
I just know it is a trivial area with a lot of people coming and going in the morning, but it's good to hear
it's been fine.
Going smooth. Good.
Paul?
Just some comments, because we just went with the appointment that was before Shining Star. We can tie this in, where you had a program that more or less contributed to the success of our students, and here you have a pre-K, and it really doesn't get the notoriety that it should. Just went through, reviewed a study put out by Arizona State and the University of Colorado, as well as the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers College. They did a study on preschool education and its lasting effects that it would have on students. And one of the conclusions that they put was that a well-designed program, which Lucy was just describing, which is a well-designed preschool education program, produces long-term improvements in school success, including higher achievement test scores, lower rates of grade repetition in special education, a higher educational attainment. And it also went on to say that the strongest evidence suggests that economically disadvantaged children reap long-term benefits from preschool, which would level the playing field for those subgroups that we have that big gap with. So I just wanted to state that a preschool, a well-run preschool, is a very great addition and a very great start for our students. They experience success there, and they're going to experience success throughout their educational career. Anyway, Lucy, thank you for doing that. And again, it was a smooth transition. And again, the foundation was laid by other individuals before Lucy, but you seem to take the ball up on a seamless transformation and really push it out well, and you're doing well, and thank you again for that.
Heard nothing but tremendous things about your program. My friends who have children in your program, and just you do a tremendous job. All of your staff does an unbelievable job. What you guys are, how you're able to help really all levels of children that you guys have down there. Just unbelievable. Just keep up the great work.
Thank you. I do think we have a great center.
The program is incredibly well run, and it always has been, and it is under your direction as well. There's no question about that. I did have a question though about having an additional classroom of children on the autism spectrum. What type of challenges has that posed in terms of your space requirements and your teaching staff? I mean, that seems to me like that's a pretty big deal.
Cyclical as far as the number of students that are referred. So in the past, if you look at us historically, we've gone from 2 classrooms to 1, 2 to 1. Unfortunately, right now, we're seeing a huge increase in the number of students that are being diagnosed, and the spectrum is a lot broader now, whereas a lot of those students, you could tell they had some significant disabilities, but we have some very high-functioning students, which is okay. We still service them as part of the Milestones program, but we put them, a lot of them are in the inclusion setting, which is the goal for most of the students. We are having a few difficulties. It really hasn't impacted the students' programming or our preschool yet. We have the space, so we have to purchase some new cubbies. I don't know how that's going to impact us. I think we should be okay with that, and we'll make do with what we have. I think we have some extra cubbies within the district, and we're just trying to make it work. We were able to hire a new teacher. Unfortunately, that didn't work out as well as we thought it would, so we currently have a posting right now to replace that teacher, which we're confident we will get somebody in there. Our behavior specialist, Jessie Lichter, has done an unbelievable job managing the program. She's taken over that classroom for now until we can get a new teacher in there. And like I said, the caliber of hires that we have as behavioral assistants is unbelievable. Like they're very bright individuals that seem to know what they're doing. The students are responding to them. So right now I don't see a negative impact as far as the number of students that are being referred. I don't know what that's going to look like for next year because we are transitioning 17 students to the elementary schools next year. And because Brookside has the Milestones program, you might see an impact there. We try to transition early enough in the school year so that Lisa Firth will be aware of the number of students that are coming, and I don't know, what they have for space or anything, but they will have definitely an impact next year. So, but we're on top of it, so hopefully we'll be fine, like we always are.
Last year, if I remember right, you moved the nurse down the other end of the car, and you moved the medically challenged classroom down.
The medically fragile room is now at Brookside Elementary School because of the ages of the students in there. The Department of Education, DESE, basically came in and said because of the age differences of our kids and the children in that classroom, they had to go to Brookside Elementary School. So they are there. One of our students who has intensive medical needs is still with us in an inclusive setting. He has a great program, and we hired 2 half-time nursing assistants to be with him. They're educational and nurse assistants, so we're doing okay.
And one other question, how did that new classroom work out for you that was in the middle of the, remember Rob Quinn helped you with all the air conditioning ducts and...
Great.
Yeah.
It's fine. Everything is fine. We have the air conditioning, no complaints.
Thank you.
Mike, just to comment on that, the classroom that we transitioned to Brookside School, when we reported that the DESE was a corrective action, if you recall, a corrective action measure, this is the same program that came out to evaluate recently, right?
Yes.
The department came out, and I had the chance to meet up with Meg and the woman from the DESE. They came up to make sure that we did what we said we were going to do. And she was just beaming when she came in, and I said, well, you must have had a great visit at Milford School. She goes, I can't even tell you how great this visit was. She said, because I go to school districts that don't deliver on what they say they're going to do, and I think to use the word, I don't know if she said it exactly, but about the over-deliver, sort of under-promise, over-deliver. Well, we promised, and we over-delivered on it. And she said, I said, well, we make sure you go back and share that with the DESE. But they were just so impressed with the opportunities for those students to engage with their peers at Brookside School and the opportunities we created for that. So just a tremendous amount of respect for the work that you were working with Meg, with Lisa Firth at Brookside School to make that happen. So thank you. And I know Jessie was part of all that, and all the work that you guys did as a team continues to show how committed we are at Milford to our children, and that we make good on our promises.
So I'll see you all tomorrow at 12:30 for the playground center tomorrow. Not if it rains. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lucy.
The next item on our agenda is the report of the superintendent of schools, and this is our first look at the MCAS information that we have recently received.
That's correct. I wanted to share with you, I know you've had a benefit to see it, a slide presentation that I took the lead on this year with our staff to get them versed in curriculum and as I take command of curriculum. It was great for me to take the helm on this. So you're right, there's more work to be done with MCAS. I thought we'd do really a 3-part series, this being part 1, is the framework as to how we're looking at it, what is, and just for the public to understand what some of these terms are. You hear NCLB and MCAS and what's happening in education, and just to give that kind of framework. So I'm not going to, the school committee's had the benefit of the slides with my notes. The public won't have the notes when they see this. I'll post this information on our website, and the purpose of tonight, what I want to do is not spend the time methodically going through all of that, but really try to make sense of this for people who are at home who may just want to know what is it we're looking at and why we're looking at it and what we're going to do about what we see. And that's really what I want to get to tonight. So the first obstacle I had to overcome on that Friday was the fact it was a Friday before a long weekend, at the end of the day, to have to sit and listen about MCAS and No Child Left Behind for staff. So I tried to lighten the mood by using this Welcome Back, Kotter theme. So the idea here was to just to lighten it up, make it an enjoyable day, but to give some background. So you may have heard of the No Child Left Behind flexibility waiver. So I know I've mentioned this to committees past and the committee present, and I'll probably say it to committees future. The No Child Left Behind Act, when it was first rolled out, was well conceived. The idea that every child would become proficient by 2014 was a great vision. It's like saying we want to end poverty by 2025. We're going to end poverty. It just was never a realistic goal in the first place. Milford was very high performing in all of its grade levels, actually, when No Child Left Behind first came out, when MCAS became the measure. And then you saw over time, when AYP was the name of the game, that we started to fail to make that mark in AYP, and we wondered why. Well, at the same time, the rigor, the expectation that pitch toward 2014 was continuing. And if we weren't going to make that progress to become proficient, everybody was destined, and I mean everybody, every district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was destined to be performing or underperforming, not making AYP. Finally, the federal government realized this. The state said, wait a minute, we're being held to a different standard. We're holding ourselves to a much higher standard than other states may be. And if you go to school in Georgia, not to slight Georgia, but you go to school in Georgia, perhaps, may not be a great example, but if you were underperforming, or you were underperforming there, rather you've advanced there, you could be underperforming in Massachusetts. So it was not calibrated nationally. The flexibility waiver said to states, if you think you have a system that's got the rigor, that's better than what's happening at other states, then we'll give you this opportunity to nationally norm this kind of assessment. Massachusetts being, because you look at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, Massachusetts comes out at the top. How is it possible? Massachusetts is a top performing state academically, yet schools throughout the Commonwealth are failing to make AYP and are declared underperforming and having to have these sort of takeovers. That's the spirit of the flexibility waiver, saying, okay, you tell us what you're going to do, and we'll exempt you now from these state sanctions. That's the spirit of what we're looking to do here. So MCAS still is the name of the game. MCAS serves to test the curriculum. The curriculum frameworks are still the curriculum frameworks. They're Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. What's going to change now, going forward, is a national framework model. It's going to be us, and we've talked about this Common Core. Common Core standards is where we're saying 85% of the states that are involved, the 24 or so states that are involved in this right now, are going to have the same model curriculum. But if you live in Montana, you're going to have that margin, that 15% margin will be for state-defined curriculum. Montana is an example because they may have, and they do have, a Native American curriculum, and they want to maintain that as part of their identity. Massachusetts will have something similar as well, but 85% of the content will be the same in Massachusetts as it will be in 23 other states, 24 other states, and that continues to grow. The test that's going to test that is called the abbreviation now is PARC. I put this out there because MCAS is a short game. We have 2, maybe 3 years tops, and MCAS is gone because the state is having to has to adopt one of 2 federal exams. What's nice about this model, this PARC, which is it's partnership for the assessment of readiness for college and career. We're no longer looking just at the standards and are our kids doing what the standards say they should be doing, but are our students graduating with the skills they need to go to college or actually have a job. So the shift has become much more, to Paul's earlier points, that our kids being an educated workforce. I think this is a very positive movement that's happening. So in any event, we still have MCAS to look at and how our students are performing in the flexibility waiver. The big takeaway here is AYP is gone. We don't talk about AYP anymore. We now are looking at PPI. So just moved up, just changed the letters. That's Juan Epstein, by the way, in case anybody had some, were wondering.
I'm jealous of his haircut.
About three-quarters of the staff, when I presented this, that were familiar with Welcome Back, Kotter, and did know many of the characters. Sadly, not all of the sweat hogs are still with us. Some of them have passed away. PPI is the Progress and Performance Index, and this really is something that the state is saying we want to see. Apologize, I have to lighten the mood with this, But how students are growing. How is Patrick Collin, for example, when you come in and taking a test, how are you growing over time, and are we able to reduce whatever gap may be there? So it's become really more customized. It's become more individualized. We've been doing some of that in Milford as part of our analysis, But we've been spending a lot of time in our analysis, and I've reported this out. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault because I was the one leading the charge with that, looking at a couple of things that I think were flawed. The first of which was assuming that looking at cohorts would be more effective than year over year. And what I learned in going through this is that because the number is so great of over 300 students taking it, that it really averaged out, it didn't matter. I mean, it would make a difference at the classroom level as to how students are performing. When you have the number of students taking the MCAS test in Milford year over year versus the cohort, we're always at averages. So it's not a lot of value, although, you know, admission of, you know, of ignorance, mistakes, whatever. That my thought was, if I could look at a cohort of groups and see how that student group was performing year after year, it would give me some indicator. It turns out that it's really not relevant. And I'm happy to admit that mistake. So we've learned that. I'm not happy, but I'm agreeable to admitting that mistake and saying that we have to look at this differently. And what that's changed the game for me in terms of how I think about looking at MCAS and working with curriculum team leaders. So PPI is a performance index which now looks at, we don't have kids anymore that used to be, we'd have a low income. We talked about our subgroups. So subgroups have gone away too, just like AYP has gone away. Subgroups are now a whole group of high needs. It's a high needs area. If you were a student in prior, when they determined AYP, and you had you were an English language learner, and you were on an IEP, and you were low income, you could have actually been categorized in 3 groups, and had impacted the average in those 3 groups. This now takes all that away, and that child is only identified for his or her gap, and that's all now factored into that same child. So that's a big change for AYP. But again, we're not looking at AYP anymore. Now we're looking at what's the distance between 75, the target PPI, that's the new number now that I want to get in everybody's head. 75 is where we need to be. And what's the distance from a child from where they performed to that 75? That's the gap. The plan of this No Child Left Behind flexibility waiver and how we're moving forward is by 2017, the gap is to be reduced by 50%. So that's the new charge. Much more realistic than 2014, everybody's going to be proficient. So there was some thought put into this. Now, I don't know what will change federally with an election coming up. And I don't know whether that will be, but my sense is that a lot of time has already been put to roll this out. I don't think it's necessarily going to have, at least not a short-term impact on how we move forward with the federal No Child Left Behind flexibility waiver. Are there any questions so far on what I said before I get to the data slides? I really want to make sure I lay the foundation nice and neatly before I go on that. Okay, I'm deeply concerned about glazed looks, and I don't want that to happen either. So they are. They're still identified.
Oh, I was going to say, because how would you identify, you know, what
they're still
subgroups need help?
Yeah, they're just not. They're not factored in like they had been before. So
Okay.
and they've changed the number, in fact. So now, used to be if you didn't have 40 students making a subgroup, now they changed it to 30. So, for example, take Bellingham. Bellingham, comparable size to maybe a little less than Milford, but you think of Bellingham comparable. They only have less than or around 40 English language learners, compared to if you think of Milford's English language learner. And they're formally limited English proficient. FLEP students, which also have ELL support, we're over 400. We're 10 times the number of Bellingham. So Bellingham would never have gotten, they would never have made that English language learner category. Milford always does. So, you know, is it an advantage, disadvantage? And you'll see in here that with these charts, and the charts are actually I made them quite simple. They're really showing you the state average and Milford's performance against that, because that's the best mark we're going to use to go forward with this. And those students are all included in that. It's aggregated. They're all the low income. Everybody's on that line, so you'll see how well. And you're going to be impressed tonight to see just how well Milford has done, because I think we've sat at this table. I sat at this table now in my 6th year, and we've taken it on the chin for our students not performing as well as they could have. Yet the state has set the standard so high, we just continue to beat ourselves up. It doesn't mean we can't improve, but we weren't doing badly, as you're going to see, because of this range of 40 to 60, which is where we should be, in almost every illustration, we're there or above it. So we've been giving ourselves, Milford pushes well. You know, it really does. We've pushed ourselves, not unnecessarily, but I think we should have been a little easier. And I think other districts are finding that same way. With the AYP gone now and the targets much more reasonable and much more focused on individual student growth, we have a shot at really hitting out of the park.
I just want to say it took a long time to get there. You've been asking, like, this is, I don't understand why it took whoever made these policies so long to get to here, because
Yeah.
it seemed obvious from the year 1 and year 2 of AYP that it just intuitively did not make sense. But that being said, go on.
No.
Yeah, it's just, it's the amount of time and effort that went into proving a policy wrong.
Crazy.
Crazy.
And then what got lost along the way?
Absolutely.
And how much money was spent trying to correct problems that really weren't problematic at all? How many schools were taken over, teachers fired, things that happened like that in other districts across the Commonwealth unnecessarily. And it's you're right on the money. Point I want to make as we go forward to frame this out. So for a school to be considered to be making progress toward narrowing the proficiency gap, that's really the charge here. The cumulative PPI for both all students group and the high needs must be 75 or higher. So again, those are just the numbers I want to get. PPI is 75. That's our target. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet.
75 means 75%, 75.
Yeah, so 75.
75% of your population has to hit advanced or proficient.
That's right. And they look at graduation rate, dropout data, there's other pieces, you know, the attendance rate, the testing cycle. And this won't change. The assessment that's coming, the PARC to replace MCAS, is not going to change. To my knowledge, not going to change that. I was just at a workshop on PARC the other day. That really won't be rolled out for another 2 years. They're piloting it now. It's going to be entirely computer-based, this assessment. What's really kind of interesting on this, which is going to have its own other set of issues, by the way, in terms of districts being ready to deal with that. One of the comments that was made was, well, those districts that were quick adopters to the iPad initiative. You remember I sat here and said, I feel like I'm the guy that's taking a left when everyone else is taking a right in the path. One of the comments that came up that was very validating for me was to say, if you had the iPad initiative, just be careful, because you may not have the technical requirements of the PARC initiative, even with all the iPads. So that's going to be an interesting dilemma for districts. And I hope that's not the case, because I know districts, you know, spent this money with well-intentioned. I don't think anyone really saw this electronic format coming, and that would be the requirement. So how that rolls out will remain to be seen. But what's interesting about this, if you're a student with a disability, for example, in your IEP allows you to have certain accommodations. That system, because of how you log in, will give you the accommodations. The calculator now appears on your screen. The information you may need for accommodations is built into the design. So it's a very interesting model. It's a national model for this. So more to come on that. I'm not going to, you know, over-exaggerate that tonight. I don't know enough to tell you more than that at this point. When I presented this to the staff, I wanted to give I wanted this to hit home. I wanted them to know on a couple of levels, what is the Department of Elementary Education say about us? What does the general public think about us? And what are we saying about ourselves? I wanted to frame it in those 3 ways. What we know, everything we know about public relations comes from within the organization. If people within the organization are not speaking well of it, don't have confidence in themselves, it's going to translate outside the organization in the same way. But with the DESE piece, I wanted to show you this slide. This is at the seminar for the staff, the workshop for the staff, is where I introduced Patricia Meehan. Patricia Meehan, whose name I mentioned, she's a statistician. She's was previously, you know, she's a PhD from Harvard, works with us, and I'll continue to work with her. Some of what she presented to our curriculum team, and I'll mention that a little bit later in the presentation, may have been not presented in a way that teachers could leave feeling empowered with. So we'll do some follow-up with the staff on that. But Pat did give some high-level analysis that day about what the DESE is saying. We are leveled as a district. We're a level 2 district. You might have heard some levels. It's levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Districts that are rated 3, 4, or 5 in their performance, considering all this performance, a student dropout, attendance, how they perform in the exam. If you're a 3, 4, or 5 district, you're eligible for the department's regional. They have a regional center. So Patricia Meehan, for example, is a data analyst for the region that we would go to as a school district for help. If we needed resources, support, training, it's provided for free to districts that are rated 3, 4, or 5. Milford had been a 3. Then we became a 2. So now we're no longer eligible for, let's just get the double-edged sword, we're no longer eligible for those free services, but we contract with Patricia Meehan, who provides us the support that we would have otherwise gotten had we been level 3. We don't want to go back to have to need the services, but we don't want to not have resources available to us. And we are level 2, not because every school is a level 2. In fact, Middle School East in this year is level 1. Is the high-performing school district, high-performing school building. But if you have any one, even if it's just one school, it's a level 2, the district, it defaults to a level 2. And then Brookside, unlike in the past where we've had the elementary schools, Brookside, Shining Star, Brookside, and Memorial School, they don't actually qualify for a leveling under the model because they're not tested schools. So there's a few departures from the prior MCAS model. So the DESE, what are they saying about us? Bottom line, they're saying that we're a 2. On a scale of 1 to 5, we're performing at a 2. It's a great place to be. It's not as great as 1, which is where we want to be. This next section of slides here looks at, we're looking at the proficiency and the growth of students. I mentioned that's the whole idea of the PPI. So here's just some charts that I want the committee to digest and just take a look at. The dotted line is the state, if you can see that okay. The district is the, obviously, the colored lines. What I want to have happen with the staff, and this is the point I was trying to get across to them and we'll continue to reinforce with the curriculum committee, is we want to look for the outlying data here, the stories, and I've always said this from the moment that I interviewed the school committee. I always believe that the narrative stories, the conversations with the child's cumulative record at the table, to see if we can get down to that level. What happened to Johnny in 2011, or his group of peers, or at that grade level, that something changed? If we know now, or we accept that, the cohort has less significance than the overall average. Every year over year, cohort doesn't matter. Something must have happened in some of these years. This line here is not a great illustration of that because, you know, you could have performance. It still hovers right around the state, and you'll see other slides that look quite different than this. That's
Different kids every year.
different kids every year, but because the number is greater than 40, there's nothing really statistically telling here that we've moved one direction or the other. But you're right, it is different kids, and it's a different test. Well, the test is the same each year as you progress up. So that group of kids in grade 3 take a different test in grade 4, which is why you really, the cohort's not as valuable if it was the same test. So you're being tested on different concepts. Again, I'm taking my lead from a statistician on it, so you know, we can, you know what I'm saying?
Excuse me, Bob, but the data that you're showing in 2012, are you saying that children have already been tested this year, or
This is the last spring's test.
Spring
that's
test.
spring test?
Yeah, so it's the
Okay.
spring, this is the spring test for the last 3 years, including this past school year. So these students now are grade 4. Yes.
Bob, what I was going to mention too is that line seems to be going down. You know, I mean, is there something that would more or less alert a red flag to catch to see why we are there and what we can do to prevent that from going down any
This
further?
illustration, no. In 2013, if the pitch continues, yeah.
Right.
But for right now, it's not.
Okay.
It's really right around the state. And again, you know, the state mark is really the key there, and we're right hovering around that.
Statistically, it's a good.
Let's see if it's this way. Okay. You know, you like to see illustrations like this. You know, you want to continue to see where we were below the state. Something happened in 2011, grade 4. Any number of things could happen. This is the data analysis. Looking at line items to say, you know, look at math and to say, well, our kids have to be able to read to solve a math problem. That's true. It's been true for a long time. So to have an item analysis that puts an action plan that says our kids need to improve their writing skills is going to get us nowhere. What I want to find out is what happened in 2011. What are the textbooks being used? What is the method of instruction? What's happening with the schedule? What are all the things that are beyond the, not to say excuses, but beyond the obvious? What's happening circumstantially, environmentally, teaching patterns? That's where I want to get to with this next level of analysis. It came out as a clear departure from past analysis because the staff are having, they're still really focused on that line item analysis, the item by item analysis, and get bogged down in those details. I think you miss the 30,000-foot view that sometimes tells you much more of the story, and then will help us to look. What I want to empower our curriculum team leaders to do, along with me, and with Meg Belcito and Jen Lancaster, is to now dig into some of these success stories. What happened from 2011, 2012 in grade 4 in English language arts, and figure out that story. Because something, and then this slide isn't so much, but when you see the middle school grade 7,
Statistically, I'm looking at that. It's dead heat. They're the same curve.
not much.
You know, if I'm going to.
That's not, and it's not a great, I'm just talking about the process of what I want to employ for data analysis
Yeah, it's
as we go
different.
forward. That's different, and you'll see what I mean. So again, to Christine's point, you're hovering right around it. It's not enough to but something like, you know, if that line continues, and if 2013 is plotted, and we're still headed in that direction, you know, we want to obviously catch it before that happens. Here we're performing grade 6 ELA, you know, well above the state. In fact, only 17% of school districts in the state are performing in that average, above that average.
17 seems to be a magic number to me.
I think it is. 17%.
I'll take it.
I will too. So I'm going to move through these. Grade 7 ELA, you know. Not a lot of growth over the last year, but still well above the state average. You know, this is interesting. See, this I think is still an interesting slide and worth looking at because it's that much greater than, you know, than the state. Oh yeah.
Has Patricia given you an indication of what variance is significant? You know, is 4 points significant? Is 5 points significant? Is 2 points?
Yeah, I think I don't know what the threshold number. I think we're looking at, you start looking at 7, 8, 9 points, something like percentage points around there. 2s, 3s, not substantial from you know from her assessment of that in terms of looking at it. But there's not a magic number that I'm aware of to say if we're at this. It used to be if we were performing at you know 60% or below the state. Yeah, she will. And I mean, it's going to be an ongoing dialogue. We've just started this analysis work with the information. And I did give out. I was remiss in pointing out. I gave the committee a packet. It was a distribution, and that gives you a sense of the standard reports. Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at. So these, instead of looking at item analysis, we're looking at various standards and how our kids are performing on those. Make sure we're going the right way with this. Okay, ELA. Did I do these already? No.
You got 8.
I got the 8, okay. So, you know, for the most part, we're above the state line, but it's following the same trend. They're not all like this. Here, now we're moving out of ELA into math. Something's happening here. Now, does this coincide with the conversation we had about everyday math? This is grade 4. I don't know. I don't know yet.
I wouldn't think.
But you're angry.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm saying,
Yeah.
but can you make a causal
I mean,
argument?
you're looking at like
I don't
it's,
see anything completely alarming, like the purple lines of the 20. I wouldn't really spend too much time on this stuff.
With
Yeah.
that range.
and your slopes are, you know, your slope of your purple line is steeper, but your cohort is smaller, so changes are going to be greater. So, you know.
Right.
So it's hard to look at it like this. I mean, what it tells us is we're not below the state average. Isn't that great? We're doing what we're saying we're doing. We're delivering the state curriculum appropriately,
That's right.
on average.
On average, and this
You know?
includes, and we haven't, you know, in the past we talked about what if we pulled our special needs kids out? What if we pulled out the?
You don't need to.
And you don't have to. And so we've.
But it's interesting to see if we're delivering education to those kids, all kids, appropriately by pulling them out. That's what we want to look at. The classroom.
And you know, you couple that with the new evaluation tool, which now is
Valuable.
it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go through these quickly. Grade 5, grade 6. Again, something magical happening in grade 7, both in ELA and in math. I don't know. It seems to be.
But math, they differentiate. You have pre-algebra and you have different levels of math, and you don't have reading anymore. You have reading for some students, but not for all students. So 7th grade is very different.
No, right, but I mean compared to what's happening in the state.
But we teach 7th grade different from our students. We seem, you know.
But the line looked similar in English language yeah, so it's.
Different. We have different students. We have reading, and we separate the kids, and then some kids take foreign language. In math, we have pre-algebra, Holt, and basic.
Right. So as we sit down in the budget, we see
Let's look.
textbook adoptions, and we see these things come up, we know where.
I wonder too if, you know, looking at it this way, we always talk about, you know, we know that we need heterogeneous at some point, we know that we need homogeneous at some other point. Where should that break be?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, but that's what I mean. This is, maybe we can find some way to have this data informed.
So the chart we have in front of us obviously is now taking this data, boiling this down to which is the most relevant data to look at. We want to find out from it. So that's the next. That's
You
the
just
next
can't do
chart.
it all at once.
And you can't. And there's only so much time in a day.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
to
right.
do this when teachers are
Can't do that.
teaching at the same time, and I'm relying on them
I
to.
don't think anyone on the committee expected answers.
So, but I wanted to make sure I gave you some good baseline to know what we were working from and how, you know, what's the, you know, this is the map. You need to have, you know, there's some direction here. Grade 8, 10 in math. Okay. Student growth. Again, this 40-60 range, more trends. Now you can see the overlays of these in these the growth of students. Grade 6.
Growth of the cohort, so when I moved from 4th grade to 5th grade,
Yes.
6th grade, which is,
This is the other level of
it's
analysis.
interesting, yes.
Yeah. Tells a totally different story. You know, so we're trying to capture his mind. Of course, these look like simple slides. The amount of time to put these slides to get the data points, you know, I want to underscore that. You know, Patricia and I have worked quite a bit to do that. But, you know, it's something like grade 7, you know, the staff sees this, and we're still, you know, you're performing within the 40 to 60 in that median, so you're still not in trouble. But staff want to know why did we drop? Even if it's insignificant or could be something that's there, they want to look at that. And so the purpose of that assembly was to get staff to take ownership, say, wait a minute, you know, they're all in the room, and then at one point they applauded for each other and were so very supportive of each other, and that's the kind of thinking is the coming together as a district to work out these problems, or share in the successes. Overlay grade 8, grade 10. It's a concern there. Still within the margin, still not bad, but it's not consistent with other grades. Yet grade 10 historically has been our savior. Grade 10 and MCAS in the past has been our way to keep our average up and actually make AYP as a district. Because thank goodness AYP went away. When it left, we left top of our game. We still made AYP as a school district. We never not made, we had subgroup issues. Some schools didn't make AYP, but as a district whole, we made AYP. And the grade 10 had been the reason for that. So what happened? What's been happening? This is, you can imagine people started writing notes at the presentation when that slide came up. Grade 4 trends in math. This is the student growth, the overlay for math. You can see the same thing here. Grade 7 continues to be a high flyer. Grade 7 math. If you want to comment on it, I know you're.
I think it takes a careful look. By the time they're in 7th grade, we have different levels of math.
So what we're doing in grade 7,
It's working.
we got to leave it alone. Whatever it is, now I want to find out what it is because I want to see if we can replicate it where it's not working, to the extent that that it makes sense to do that.
Well, I think, I mean, in the past, we've differentiated at younger grade levels. You know, so again, it goes back to my point that we know that we need homogeneous at some point. We know that we need heterogeneous at some point. You know, where does that break occur? And we're seeing some pretty remarkable results post differentiation. It's an interesting point.
Grade 8. There's grade 10 again. Again, still within the median, but still raises the flag for me. Especially when we know this is the last shot of testing before they now move on, and when you get to that college and career readiness, are we positioning our grade 10 students well enough? Okay. You can.
No, I won't say.
Okay. And some of it could simply be the alignment of courses in the block schedule into when the test is given, and how familiar the content is. Oh, there's a point you're going to make? Okay. And so that could be as easily explained
Favor
as that.
us, absolutely.
And you know, science slides in here, but biology, maybe they have it in the first semester, they're taking the test in the spring, they've forgotten the content, they've been focused on something else. That's right. Some of that can be, not that you want to excuse it, but some of that could be very simply explained that way. So I don't want to suggest that our math teachers are failing, or that's not the case here. I don't want to illustrate that at all. Okay. That's not, because again, Milford High School had been, and perhaps continues to be, you know, the area that keeps our average high. Okay, this is the slide that I used about, you know, and it's really not reliable data. This is really more a shock factor. I did this for a purpose. I did this for a purpose to get a rise out of the staff. And I said, well, what do you think people are saying about us? What's the perception out there? There's a number of ways you can go online and rate school districts. And so I've given them some ratings of other neighboring towns. You know, sometimes we compare ourselves depending to comparable demographics of communities. Sometimes we want to compare ourselves to down the road and to Holliston and Hopkinton and so forth. And honestly, I want to be the best in the state, so it doesn't matter. But I wanted to give some perspective on what people think about Hopkinton and Holliston. So I gave them some numbers, and then I asked the staff to take a guess. You guys have already had the benefit of seeing this presentation, so you already know the answer. But so I gave them some numbers. Medway's public perception was a 9, ranked on a scale of 1 to 10. Nipmuc High School, ended up to 9. Hopkinton, 10. Holliston, 9. Grafton, 9. Bellingham is a 6. And then the slide I showed to the staff, I asked them to think about it, and then there was Milford. There was a big pause. Understandably. I said, that doesn't necessarily reflect our scores. We saw what the DESE said, and that's what matters. We saw the empirical data. But the next level is perception data. So we're only as good as people think we are, because they're going to move away based on the real estate market if someone's telling them, oh, yeah, come to this town because they're rated or viewed as this. I said, this is not acceptable to me. A 6 is not acceptable to me. We have to change that perception. How do we do that? We change the internal perception. Once we can be proud of ourselves and know what we're doing and share that good work, we can begin to change the perception around us, and then overall people view the community as being as great as we see that it is, because the scores are saying that Milford's a great place to come to school. No question about it. But the public doesn't necessarily think so. Why? So this is sort of one of those real quiet moments in an auditorium. People just kind of ponder. It was a little bit heavy on a Friday before a long weekend, but it was necessary. So it was intended purely for shock value. I'll be up front. I think Milford's a great town, and we have the scores to show. We can do better. So, and then what do you say about us? Again, it goes off to the point I made earlier. And then, Boom Boom Washington's no longer with us. He's another of the deceased on the far left. But we talked about a task force. So I just, at this point in the presentation, I explained to the staff what our curriculum committee is doing, who they are, had them stand up, be identified, and then the charter, the kind of work that we're doing with them. We've met now twice this school year already and had some successful meetings. Just explain that to them. And then the challenge going forward was kind of making sense of all this, putting this together. And then Arnold Horshack, God rest his soul, was our slide for questions. So there we are. That's the MCAS, state of MCAS, No Child Left Behind in a very quick nutshell. More work to be done, but I wanted to give the committee just at least a baseline look at that. So are there any questions that I can try to answer that I haven't already answered? Okay. Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you very much.
Very good. That's good. I appreciate
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources.
Thank you. This evening I have 4 warrants for the committee's approval. The first warrant is in the amount of $18,092.57.
I have a motion from Scott, second from Paul. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries.
Second warrant is in the amount of $159,588.09.
Motion from Rob, second from Christine. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries.
The third warrant is in the amount of $12,864.11.
Motion from Dawn, second from Mike. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries.
Fourth warrant is in the amount of $188,836.58.
Motion from Mike, a second from Dawn. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries.
The school committee has a list of the latest hires and appointments from our last meeting. I do have a jury duty request, which does require a vote, for Allison Salvucci.
Mike, what do you want to say?
I have a motion from Mike to approve jury duty, second from Scott. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. Motion carries.
And there is a monthly update. There are no crises in the budget. It is early in the quarter, and we do have gifts this evening.
Terrific. Three gifts.
Yes.
The first gift is from Walmart. This is a grant written by, this is a grant from Walmart written by Sherry Allman. It is for nonfiction tests, the amount of $1,000. The second grant is from Andrew Viennes, or Viennes? Andrew Viennes, the WS Children's Fund. It's for children's needs. It's a grant of $1,000. And the third gift is from Target Corporation. It's Take Charge of Education, and it is a $25 gift card. Can I have a motion from Christine, a second from Rob to accept these three gifts? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor? The gifts are accepted. Please make sure that we contact all those very generous donors. We really appreciate that. The next item on our agenda are our subcommittee updates. I know that the policy subcommittee has spent some time working. Do we have an update that you wanted to share with us, or?
We met this week and we talked about the coaches policy that Dawn had brought up for review, and we made some revisions under advisement of Jerry Moody, and it's for our review, not for our vote, and that'll come in the next packet. That's okay. And then we'll meet again, because I think there is a need to tighten the turf field policy. So I'd like to get a meeting sooner than later to get that tightened up, and we'll send that out to the committee for review. I think we've had the spring and the fall, so now's the time to clean it up. That's it?
Yeah, probably within either prior to the next meeting or the meeting after that.
Yeah, we'll do it next.
The security subcommittee?
No updates.
No updates?
No, we didn't. Did get an update from Rob Quinn.
Oh, gosh.
That the signage requests by Milford High School admin are installed. Courtyard gates are now locked and alarmed, and that the message went out to the parents and staff and students. There are now 17 cameras set up, and field cameras can all be viewed on the new exact vision system. Front door cameras and monitors are operational as well. To that point, you know, one of the suggestions was to have the steel gates put up. So they did that. They did alarm it. So things are working out well there. One of the things that we're gonna be addressing, and Mike, I apologize, I haven't even been able to reach out to you about this, is want to look at the callback system for when kids are absent. So, I mean, I've had personally as a parent issues with this in the past, and then I went away last week. I took one of my kids with me on a business trip, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna hold off from calling the school just to make sure that I'm getting my call back. Sure enough, I didn't get my call back. So what I did is I asked Bob to have all the principals provide us with an overview of their policies on how they handle the callback. So I have that, and I'll gladly share that with everybody. But my point was, it's different. Every school is different, even though the system's the same. And you know, one of them I thought was really cool. Like, you know, they actually send out an email as well as a phone call, and all these different things. So I'd like, you know, Mike and I will work on this with the principals and see if we can't tighten that up and make sure that we are making a call to every student that is absent, because as a parent, never mind being on a school committee, as a parent, I want to know if my kid's not in the school, and that's extremely important. So that'll be the next thing that we discuss.
Is that a school committee policy, or is that a building by building policy?
There's not a school committee, there's not a callback policy. We use the alert now system. In the past, we used to have volunteers that made phone calls, and so we've kind of
I'm just
morphed.
wondering what jurisdiction it legally falls under.
It would be the building principals would have to arrange for that, yeah. And it's done fairly consistently at the elementary school.
Yeah.
The middle school's a bit different than that, and then the high school's
very
different than that too.
The next item is new business. Does anyone have new business?
I just have a question. Years ago, I had a conversation with another parent, and they were telling me how their child was staying after school and, you know, taking the bus home. Well, years ago, we used to have a late bus in the district, and I know budgetary reasons it got dismissed, which is fine. I just love a little background on it, because now we own 2 buses. And one way that this other district pays for the after-school bus is that when you sign up for an after-school program, in that program, small fee is a bus fee. So that transportation is covered. We know we can plan for transportation, we can plan for the students, and then have that bus. I don't know if it'd be something people were interested in. I don't know, it would be something that takes a while, but I think the late bus would get more kids involved in some of the after-school activity, like at Stacy, the middle school. Boy, wouldn't it be great if you had more kids even able to take advantage of extracurricular activities, but who can't get transportation to and from. Even at the high school, there's more options, but still. I don't know, but I know in the past it was eliminated for budget. I just don't know if that was ever explored.
I can speak to our buses, Christine. Right now, that's the conflict, because that's the time of day when we're doing our athletic runs.
Okay.
So every run that we have our bus, we're saving a run of, could be $400 a trip. So it's advantageous to keep the athletics, but we had looked at that.
Yeah.
It might be a possibility for us to look at our budget, add a route, add a late bus route, if we have hopefully some additional revenue, and contract that out.
Or even, you know, if you're paying for after school, like
Offset it with something.
Yeah, there's a fee that this other district applied, so they could plan for the students. They knew what their routes would be, but they could plan for the number of buses and that they needed. And I just think it would be, I always think schools, after school, should be a hub of activity for students. Students shouldn't be going home at 2:30. And so, you know, whatever way we can provide that is great, but parents, it's hard for parents to get all the same students. You see the same people there. But if we could provide something, not tomorrow, but it's just an idea that I'd love to start germinating among people.
Even if it was just an offset. If we couldn't fund it with the full fee, but.
I don't even know what it costs. What does it cost? You know, I don't even know what kind of discussion that is, and just, it's interesting to ponder when I know other districts can do it. Like the AP classes wouldn't be great. There's lots of stuff. Bring it down to the middle school.
Any other member of new business? The next item on our agenda is old business. Does any member of old business? Don?
Let's see. First of all, Kathy, thanks for sending over that list of stipends that I had asked for last week, so I appreciate that. But also part of that policy thing, I think you all remember that I asked for the coaching to go under a course, or see if the MIAA could deliver a course here. So just wanted to report that Richie has set up a class for December 3rd for our coaching staff. The person presenting will be Rick Riley. He's the current MIAA Coaches Education Instructor, and the course is going to be on player and parent conflict resolution, as well as motivational strategies. So I just wanted everybody to know that.
The next item on our agenda is executive session. We will have a very brief executive session this evening. It'll be for the purpose of discussing certain correspondence that may have an impact on our position to bargain collaboratively, and discussing said correspondence may impact our position negatively. So we will need a roll call with each member who is agreeing to enter into executive session saying yes, and those disagreeing saying no. So if I could please have a roll call of all the members. So we will now be entering into executive session. The media will be leaving, and we will not be returning. Thank you.